Uh, Reggie, welcome to Leadership Inside Out. It is wonderful to see you again. You have a fascinating industry, fascinating background. I know that you've worked at Yahoo, which must have been fascinating at the time in its prime, I think.
It really was. It really was.
Well, thank you. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Guy. It's an absolute pleasure, as you say, to meet you again. It's been a wee while, but yes, that you're absolutely right. Yahoo was one of a number of different tech companies that I worked at. It was actually prior to Yahoo. It was a company called Alta Vista, which
Oh,
was
well,
acquired by
that makes
Yahoo.
gold.
Yeah, yeah. So that I'm showing my age here. But it was in those heady days when this little company in Mountain View called Google was just developing, and everyone was kind of laughing, going, "Who are these guys? Who do they think they are?" But it was in the heady days of search. But yes, that's just one part of my upbringing before starting my business. So
So,
yeah.
so Reggie, could you tell us your journey to where you are today, and then let us understand, let's know about what finds you here.
Wow. Okay. I'll give you the because it could take quite a long time, but I'll give you a condensed version of my journey. So I was born in India. Um, Both my parents were in the medical profession, dad in the medical administrative side, mum was a nurse. And we in North India, in Punjab, and my the hospital that my parents worked at, they had a large Scottish connection in Glasgow, and they needed somebody to work a tabulating system, an administrative system in the Scottish NHS in Glasgow. And my dad could work that system. So he came over in a very cold November back in the day. And yeah, and that was my upbringing. Grew up in Glasgow. Dad was then moved, started his own business in the insurance business, became very, very good at it. His company moved him to the Midlands in Leicester, which is where we all moved to. I was 15 then at the time. And then those kind of years was really when I developed and went into the insurance business, because dad was in the insurance business. So I thought this would be a great thing to go into, and then went into that and realized that communication and talking to people at a very early age was something that I really enjoyed, but it was also something that was so key. And I can't remember who said it. I think it was George Bernard Shaw, that the problem with communication is the assumption that it's actually taken place. Um, and so what you say isn't necessarily how people perceive or do it. So it got me into advertising and selling advertising, got into publishing, IT publishing. And when this internet thing came around, started an agency with a friend of mine, having worked at other search engines and various other businesses. And that's what I did. Prior to that, I also built up two startups and sold them. One was a voice over IP company with a business that, it all sounds very grand. And that was a team of guys with Ericsson, and it was the first one to list on a junior exchange on Cymex in Singapore. And then the second one was something I bootstrapped, and we sold to a Japanese business called Rakuten, which was a Google Analytics add-on, if you like, that looked at attribution and click analysis for Google ad campaigns, which was used by about 40% of the media buying agencies in London. So it's quite a successful tool. Started Digital Clarity to where we are today. We've been around for more than 2 decades. We were a pure play search sort of pay-per-click agency, helping people to raise their profile on search results, search engine optimization and clicks, and then moving into social media. But today we are very much focused in the B2B space, working with tech leaders, helping them make the most of this amazing digital economy. And we're very much in the advisory space. So we don't sort of manage campaigns, but we really have a personal relationship to try and help normally CEOs or boards of businesses of varying sizes, depending. We meet them where they are to try and help them do that. Whether it's growing their annual recurring revenue, fixing their team, knowing when to start, how to implement AI, whatever. That's where we are today. So that's my abridged version of how I got to where I am today.
Wonderful. And I mean, I'd love to explore a little bit more of that in
Sure.
due course. But if we can we start back at the beginning? I mean, moving
Hmm.
from the Punjab to Glasgow, um, what was that like?
Wow. It's quite a journey, both culturally, for my parents. My parents, they're fair. They had fairly modest means and came over, so they saw this as a great opportunity. I think, like a lot of people who move,
Hmm.
they risk everything and give up family and friends and their own culture and move to a new country, a new world, a new beginning, where people
Mm.
speak a different language and don't necessarily, which we found, tolerate them very well.
Very well.
And so that had quite a profound effect on me and kind of toughened me up, if for want of a better word. Because you had a foot on both camps. You
Mm.
wanted to blend in, but we're always going to be different. So that was always an interesting time. And I think when you're young, you don't want to be different.
No.
And when you're a teenager, as you're getting older, or late teens and things, you want to be different, but want to blend in. So it's always that dichotomy. So that was a very interesting time. Certainly back then, in the 80s, it was a different era. The world was changing,
Mhm.
attitudes were changing, the world was changing quite rapidly. Certainly from the 70s, and and there was a lot of hope, a lot of optimism about where this world was going to go, 80s and 90s. And I think that's and I'm very sort of grateful that I grew up in that era. I've got
Mhm.
two boys myself, both at university, at different years, and they always talk to me about the music, the fashion, the times, the attitudes, and how people were in those decades. But for me, growing up, that was an interesting time, and also the impact of my parents on me, because Dad had a lot of success, but a lot of failures, and then success again, and how he
Oh.
counted success and what success meant to him.
Mhm.
So um, really, really interesting that he moved from a world where success was about family, about happiness, about life, about enjoying life, food, friends, fun, you know,
Mhm.
playing sport, doing all that kind of stuff, to a world where it's all about commercialism, how much have you got, how much can you consume, etc. So and it was difficult, and he was always very keen to actually focus us on things that were important, that are important, and have a wider worldview than the things that are just in front of our eyes, if you like, especially in the low times, because we did go through, as a family, as I say, we had the ups, but we also had some downs,
Mm.
and it's how you deal with that. But I saw my dad; he didn't have any of those skill sets or strategies, or there was no YouTube, there were no podcasts around in those days. I couldn't sort of slap on and listen to, Rob Begg, or all these different kind of coaches and things. It was all very much him as a hierarchical male, having to providing for his family, and dealing with that. So that, as the eldest of three boys, it really had a profound impact on me with my dad. So yeah, so he's still with us. He's not in great health, but he's still there, and I still remember him. and still remember him. I'm still sort of talk to him about those days when he can reminisce, bless him. So yeah, so it's great, interesting
Wonderful.
times.
It is interesting. We were just sharing before we started that I'm also, an immigrant, and single father, and yeah, my father successful, built his own business, but I also remember the tough times, the times when the house was possibly going to go, and it does give a solid foundation to what comes next in your life.
Really does, Guy. And I think the thing is as well that it's a never-ending cycle. I've been very lucky to meet like mega what the world views as very mega successful people. I was very lucky to be on a guest on another podcast with a guy called David Meltzer, who'd built up a successful business with Sports One marketing. The film Jerry Maguire was based on that.
Wow.
Show Me the Money. And this David he lost $100 million and went to rock bottom. I mean, when I say lost a whole bally lot, not just like, oh, I lost 100. That was his thing. And his story is all about coming back and what he's trying to give back now. And the humbling experience, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to sell the kids, or, all that kind of really powerful stuff. But he was kind of saying that, and when you meet different people, challenges are always there. It doesn't, sometimes the most successful or perceived successful people are sometimes they're very lonely, they have challenges, they have all sorts of things. So the cycle always, there's always something there. It doesn't go away. It's like when you're a kid doing exams at school. I'll feel better when I've done my GCSEs or my A levels or my whatever. Well, guess what? Once you've done that, something else is on the horizon. So there's all these different things. So yeah, so that's the I can really relate to that, Guy, in terms of the with your own father as well.
And you moved from Glasgow to the Midlands, and that
Yes.
can't have been an easy shift either. Possibly a Glaswegian accent by that stage.
Yeah, thick Glaswegian accent still there. There's still sort of dulcet Scottish tones there, for those that know, especially after a few glasses. And equally, I think it was tough. It was again, it was an era of anything different, you were going to be standing out. You're either going to be open to ridicule, but also toughens you up because you either take it or you fight back. Yeah. So I think that was the interesting period. But it was, again, at the time, it can be low periods, but equally, when you look back, the resilience that you build, the muscle that you build is just it's difficult. And I look back at my own children when I was, I always look at them and thinking, blimey now, they've never had to go through some of the things that I've had to go through, and they're moaning about data on them, on their cell phone, on their mobile, and they're like, and you're like, is that your biggest challenge right now? What the Wi-Fi password is? It's so but it's a different era, and we can't always look back and say, just because I did this, you've got to do that. But I think I sometimes, I wouldn't say worry, because I'm optimistic. I'm always a glass half full individual. I always believe that things will always work out, and we've won half the battles that we thought were the end of the world, and we're still here, sort of thing, and the world still turns and the sun still shines. So, but I do sometimes worry about that, and I think it does concern me sometimes about what is this world they're going into, and how do they cope with it? The skills that they have to cope with it, things. So, but yeah, they're tough. So yeah, it's good.
Growing up in the Midlands, teenage years.
teenage years, and then really that's when moved into career,
Hmm.
working in insurance, then working in marketing and advertising, and then a bit like Dick Whittington, had the calling to go to London.
Right.
I grew up in a place called Leicester in the Midlands, and for full disclosure, I'm a Leicester City fan for my sins. So
Constantly disappointed, in other words.
yeah, yes. Really, last season was great because we got promoted from after getting relegated, but got promoted, and it's been a tough old season. We've got Chelsea this Saturday after the international break, so that'll be interesting because our old manager is their new manager, Enzo Maresca. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But no, went to that and went to London, and that's where really I think it was a real eye opener and a real looking back on it. It was really quite an interesting time to be in London in those sort of early 90s, which was fantastic time to be alive. It was brilliant. It was so good.
I was also in London in the 90s as well.
Yeah,
It was a fascinating time. Just
it really
yeah,
was.
there was a buzz.
Yeah,
How,
and some. Yeah.
how did that transition? What was that transition from growing up, going into insurance, going into I mean, those are potentially quite big career shifts.
They are. They are. They were always around customer acquisition or new business development, selling, those kind of areas. But insurance business is all about selling concepts and ideas, which is the same kind of in the ad world. Though there's things that are more tangible within advertising. The creativity that's used in trying to convey what a future investment might look like when you can't see it now, but
Mm,
you're selling the concept and the idea of what managing risk looks like and why you should invest in managing risk or future, investing for the future and all these kind of things. So using the creativity, and I met some of the best salesmen in the world. There, they sold by using a piece of paper and a pen and draw and tell stories and draw ideas. And then I met some great salespeople within the advertising and marketing world, and they are the best salespeople in the world because they sell us everything that we buy, even if we don't need it sometimes. So they're the brains behind some of the biggest campaigns and things. So I've been very lucky to be exposed to those
okay.
people and to start something. And as automation came, that was something that I got really into. So
Wow.
yeah.
And taking the step into your own business.
It was for me. It was always a natural thing. I felt that it was there. I've always wanted to do it, and
Hmm.
I think when the timing wasn't perfect. It was an era where I was had a great job, probably one of the highest paying roles I'd ever had, but things were coming to a head as things were changing in this organization. And a colleague of mine who I actually recruited, who had the brains, if you like, was developing something. And we just decided to take a punt. But it was probably done at the worst time. My wife was pregnant at the time with my my eldest son. Um, I didn't have a huge amount of cash, in the bank, and so it was really like having to spare on. And then we didn't really know if the concept of what we were coming up with would work. But what we did have was a desire. We had a bit of a business plan written on a scrap of paper, and we knew lots of people, and we used our network. And we said, how would you feel about doing this? Take a punt on us. And that's how we did it. And we grew that business right in those early days rapidly. And it was quite frightening. But again, without having the skill sets, without having a coach or an MBA from somewhere or whatever. Even if you have an MBA, it doesn't teach you about business.
No, no.
Um, and I think what I've learned is that if you can talk to people who've been through that process, because it's a lonely gig.
Mm.
Everyone looks at it, with sort of, everyone wants to be that top of the tree kind of entrepreneurial CEO.
Yeah.
The reality is it's a tough, lonely, brutal business, and it's never a straight line. So
Nice.
so that's how I got into business, and so it was quite and still is an interesting journey. Strap yourself in, So yeah.
And what did you draw upon in those tough times?
Really, you kind of look back during other tough times and how you got through.
Mm.
Equally, what I found a lot of solace in was a lot of books that I was reading at the time as well. So again, there's no YouTubes and podcasts and things like that that you can really lean into that can be transformative. I mean, it's really, we're living in, as I say, even stranger times and great times, but depending on how you look at things. But great books, talking to some great people, and people who'd been through it. And you also realize who you can trust and not trust as well. But I think during those tough times, it feels like the end of the world. It's like you're on the edge of a cliff looking down at this impending doom, and the fires of hell are there, and you're just hanging on, your toes are almost on the edge, gripping on, and you're leaning and the wind's blowing behind you and you're about to fall in. But like most things in life, when you dig deep and you take yourself away from it and look at it, it's just one aspect of many, many things.
Mm.
I read a book ages ago that I sort of, Susan Jeffers wrote a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And there was a diagram in that, but I didn't particularly, sorry, Susan, if you're listening, but I didn't particularly enjoy the book. But there was something in the book that I took away, which is she talked about people's life and she drew it a square and lots of little squares and said, this is your life. What you're experiencing is this one square. It's not all these other aspects that you have around there. So this pain that you've got is only this tiny square of all these other things that make up your life, your family, your friends, your this, that, and the other, but you're blowing it up into this massive thing. And I remember during some of those times, though it seems like it's everything and everything's going to go and everything else like that, it's kind of like, well, actually, it's a perception, and it's how you deal with that perception. You either have a choice of being negative about it and looking at where you are now, or you look up and look at what the future might look like and how you can achieve that, and get more into and I think with a lot of those books that I read at the time, it was the clear thing during those tough times, in answer to your question, Guy, was about trying to be in the moment and not looking back or looking forward or what if something's going to happen. Yeah, just really getting in and trying to deal with it here and now, or in the moment. So that's really how I dealt with those times.
It sounds like you were able to draw on very strong family connections as well.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying earlier about Dad, though I never really discussed it. He was a quiet man. He wasn't one for huge amount of conversation, unless I'd done something wrong, which is quite often. But he was I think subconsciously, a lot of those things, seeped in. You don't realize it at the time. I don't think you realize the impact parents have on you. It's really so powerful. And it made me think about when I had my own children. Maybe less, less so when they were younger, but as they were growing up, I was thinking, goodness me, the impact is just, they soak everything up. So yeah, really, really fascinating. But yeah, you're right. It was a lot of family, influence there. Absolutely. 100%.
Wow. So it sounds like from what you're saying, you went through quite a lot of change in your career over quite a short period of time. A couple of new businesses, Upper Vista, Yahoo was around the turn of the century. If I
Yeah, it's the world changed rapidly, as the old saying goes. And I remember having this as a strap line for something that's been begged, borrowed, and stolen from so many people. The only constant in life is change. But I was part of a business, and I'm still part of a business that's very much at the forefront of that change, which is the birth of the internet, the new industrial revolution, that changed everything. The fact that we are talking as we are now, and the fact that we are, a lot of the things that we have now, it's just so transformative, good and bad in equal measure, like most things. And so it was really kind of quite a quite an experience. But yeah, so it's rapid change, and now with AI, there's two letters that I'd be very surprised if we didn't bring up, because they seem to be in everything that everyone talks about. It's another frontier, it's another pivot, but without embracing it and engaging in it, you won't move on, because it has such an impact. And it's the same when we went through 2 decades ago with the internet, the changing face of commercialization of the internet, what it was then and what it is now. It's really interesting. But even in this short term, I can see the parallels of those .com boom and busts with the resistance to AI and its early stages as it settles, to what we are talking to our clients and prospects about and helping them make sense of it. It really is quite fascinating. So yeah.
And so it was digital clarity, is that correct?
Digital clarity, yes.
So you started that in the early noughties?
Yes, so we started that in early 2000s, and then up until just under 10 years ago, we became a wholly owned subsidiary of an American public company called DBMM Group. Right. DBMM trades on the OTC market in the US, and it's a great gateway for potential investors to invest in companies like Digital Clarity and companies like us who actually advise individuals of how to make sense of all this change that's going on. A lot of organizations want change, they don't know where to start, and they are so they're really looking at how to get into this, and they've just made a change maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago, and now they're having to change again, but they realize why that's happened. And of course the pandemic changed everything and made us think differently anyway about all sorts of things. And I think a lot of people are still, to this day, I talked to many CEOs, they are still reeling from those very bizarre 2 years. So and onwards. So yeah. So yes, that's
a Digital Clarity. That sounds like that has changed as a business over the last 22, 23 years now.
Yeah, post-pandemic we changed. Just pre-pandemic we were changing anyway, going from a sort of full-service marketing agency, moving more into advisory. The digital marketing is a very commoditized business.
Mhm.
You can have a bright young thing do a half-day course and suddenly they're an expert. A 19-year-old life coach. So so
We laugh, but those are a reality.
I know. And so some of the things that we have to undo are because companies have gone into those sort
Mm.
of things because they're after a quick fix or they want the six pack, but they don't want to do the gym. They don't want to do the sleep, the nutrition, the work, if you like, to build those foundations. So, there's no such thing as a quick fix. So if there is, it's very short lived. But yeah, so we transitioned into advisory work, and that is what we do. So we're growing into a fully fledged sort of management consultancy business within the marketing sphere, but also advising right now on how to make the most of their marketing through our strategy piece. So we're very strategically led. Most companies, only 10-20% of companies, the operator principle, will actually invest time in actually devising a strategy of how to work.
Surprising.
Yeah, it's incredible. Everyone else is trying different things, thinking they know better than the successful 10%. So all the answers are there, and what we've done is distill them into a framework to help companies really rapidly grow. So we work at the front end very much on things like value propositions, who your ideal customers are, all these different things, how to create an offer, what is it that people see when all of that kind of stuff. And really what we do now is help people then take that value and communicate it to their prospects at scale using AI. So that's kind of what we're developing. So currently, strategy at the front end, it's a yin and yang, and then using AI to scale that, as opposed to the other way around. A lot of people just using the tools that are out there. The third part of that is actually going to be something we're developing, which is going to be a layer that sits on top of that. So it's our own sort of AI stack that we'll be developing. So that will look at streamlining that process, and interrogating lots of years of data that we've had over the years, and sort of distilling that into something that's far more engaging for people at all of those stages, that journey. So we're kind of like a bit of a sat nav. You've got a destination that you want to go to, and before you start, you type in your where you want to get to, and the satellite navigation will tell you exactly where you are, not where you think you are, but exactly where you are. I think a lot of companies think they are somewhere else. What we do is say, you're actually not there, you're actually here. And to get there, these are all the things you're going to need: resources, people, this, that, and the other. So before we give you the building blocks, let's look at the things in a really cold way. So
start at the beginning.
Yeah. So that's where we start.
Before I'd love to spend some time talking to you about AI, but just before we do that, you talked about moving towards a change before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision? And what effect did the pandemic have in that process?
Moving into AI. Really, we'd been using AI for quite some time because we worked with Google and a lot of machine learning. We were already dealing with very large data sets. The company that we launched and sold, Digital Clarity Storm, DC Storm,
right,
to Rakuten in Japan, that was interrogating large amounts of data. So we'd always been in that business of algorithms and making sense of data. So when AI came along in its various forms, it was just a natural fit for us to use third-party tools. But yeah, so the shift to AI was kind of quite it's quite a natural one, but it was also one of those things we had to, because the way the world is moving, you can never stand still. And we were noticing, we look at trends generally anyway, we look at data and we could see what things were doing, but also just the efficiency that AI can create it made sense. Not just generative AI, but actually coding with AI systems and as well. So a bit of both, a bit of both. So efficiency in showing companies how to be efficient, but also how to acquire new customers, really, which is the name of our game, and to build a brand. But there's some still core fundamentals. You cannot start using those tools thinking it's the panacea to everything. There's a lot more to it than if you want to be successful with it. So yeah, as I'm sure you know, because I think we were just talking about Notebook LM just now earlier on. What an amazing, frightening, hilarious type of thing.
Well, I've been in contact with ChatGPT because I was, I mean, I'm very lucky. Despite being dyslexic, writing is a core part of what I do. I love writing. It's very it takes a lot of energy. So I've got a lot of words that I've written over my sort of 35 years. So I was looking at, I'm looking at whether I can build my own AI. So basically just feed it all of my content. It's amazing. I'm sure it could produce some really wonderful work, given, all the stuff that I've sort of dealt with over my career. And clearly, so I'm fully invested in understanding it, and very early days. And you're right. It's just, I talk to people about, creating free AI bots based simply on your website. Notebook, just for people listening, is at the moment offers talking heads. So man and woman interview simply based on content that you put into it. I fed it some feedback, some really nice feedback from one of my clients, and they made a 15-minute chat around not only the feedback, but also the importance of coaching. So it goes beyond just the immediacy of what you do to create context and stuff. So it's some incredibly powerful potential.
It really is. It really is. We were just chatting before we started about, I just got it to interrogate a couple of just to look at my Spotify profile and LinkedIn profile, and I wrote this or created an interview between these two people, this guy and this girl, just talking about me, which was kind of like the most bizarre thing ever. Very self-indulgent, but also very quite interesting what an outsider would look at as well, in terms of me as an individual, from a business perspective. So it's really like quite disturbing. It's dystopian in a way, but also I can see the amazing opportunities in there. So yeah, it was so hilarious. I had to put it up on my Spotify, just uploaded it. I thought, everyone have a chuckle at this. You know, if you're feeling down, listen to this and have a laugh, because it's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, I love it. I love Notebook, and I think Google was kind of interesting. Guy, just as a slight tangent, I was listening to somebody very early this morning. I get up quite early, talking about they had an image of a hamster on a wheel going round and round in circles, that so many people are creating so much content now using AI, that a lot of the more successful, bigger brands are actually slowing down. They're taking a step back, but getting deeper, leaning in, focusing in on brand, focusing in on, because when a lot of the dust settles and people cut through the noise, really brand and who you are is will shine head and shoulders above everything else. And we talk a
absolutely.
lot of, and we really talk to our clients about not, going for the next big thing, the shiny new object, because there'll always be something around, but really focusing in partly how do you adjust with that? How do you adjust? How do you balance that out? And that's what we help with a lot of communications. But equally, brand is sometimes all you have. It's the thing that shapes people. It's the thing that makes people really understand the true core of who you are.
Yes.
As well. And I think in the world of AI, Merriam-Webster, the online dictionary, I think 2023 word of the year, last year's word of the year was on authenticity. And I think people are looking for authenticity in this virtual world.
Yes.
And so it's always something worth noting and remembering. So,
Well, and it's interesting because there is a perception that AI just simply takes from the internet, and I've already, as I suggested, you can program AI to take it from whatever source you want. So, in my case, taking it from my own material that I've pre-written, and so
yes.
in some ways, it's a great time to be us in terms of our experience, our background, the material, the knowledge, because it's very easy to generate an answer, but having the wisdom, having the experience to know whether that answer's good, whether it talks about it in terms of our voice, that's something that at least we have if we can embrace that AI technology. That younger people won't have that same inherent wisdom that they can bring to that tool. So, as you say, authenticity, not a bland response, but something curated that reflects who you are as a person or as a company is going to be a very powerful thing to have.
I totally agree. One of the things that we sometimes use AI for, even though I can tell with a gut feeling, is that we look at people's websites and we look at, and they're always talking about how they're not converting visitors, they're generating interest, but then there's people bouncing away from them. When you look at their homepages and things, it's sometimes it's been written by AI, but they've just chucked everything on there, kind of like a catch-all, and it just doesn't resonate with anyone. No. Really, you no matter what you do, you want something that's going to really engage with people. So you could get rid of, and when you say to people, look, you've got to get rid of about 80% of your content, they're horrified. Oh my God, what do you mean? And what about the person who lives in, wherever, in Namibia, who might occasionally just come across my website? But the reality is that you've got to really understand. It goes back to that thing about who you are. But you're right. You can, when you've got experience, like people like ourselves who've been around the block a few times, they've got some skill sets. You can look at things immediately and you can see where the answers are, or help them with those answers. It's just guiding people sometimes to discover it themselves, as opposed to sometimes being prescriptive, which sometimes people need. You will do this, you need to do this, so you won't be here in 6 months, type of thing. So I totally agree. And you're right, it's very difficult for young people when they've got such a powerful tool. I mean, they've got 18-year-olds with the keys to the most powerful Ferrari ever built. Now, if you don't have experience in driving a fast car, you're gonna wrap it around a lamppost. You could actually do serious damage to yourself. And that's what we've got. We've got these people running around with keys to Ferraris, and not really knowing how to drive them. So I was talking to a recruiter, just going off on a tangent, and she was saying to me that the amount of CVs she gets that are written by ChatGPT, and they've still got all the lines and stuff in them, they've just literally pronounced, oh no. And actually really feels for the youth, where it's going. Like no one's sitting down and helping those people, saying, "Listen,
No,
guys, come on,
no,
think about it." So yeah, so changing times, Guy, changing times,
changing times,
indeed,
changing.
indeed.
And I think the scary thing is, if you'd had thought 30 years ago when you were starting out in your career that this is what you would be doing, I don't think any of us would ever have any inkling that this was even possible, let alone something we're at the forefront of.
Very true, very true. It's a who knows? It's the journey, isn't it? Who knows
Hmm.
the twists and turns that lie ahead? But yeah, when you look back, did one set out to do those things? And we're talking about youngsters. A lot of them who are maybe lucky enough to go to university or are doing apprenticeships or doing whatever they're doing. It's not forever. The world is changing so much. So just because you're in something now or you're studying something now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's something you'll be doing in the future. They're
Mm,
saying something like 30% of the jobs of the future haven't even been invented yet. So it's like, well, what does that mean?
yeah.
So it's a really fascinating time, because there's so, and I understand how people get quite anxious about it because it's so uncertain. Forget the geopolitical stuff that's going on. You've got all this other things on a day-to-day basis. So as you say, it's very interesting times.
It's I mean, I've got two children, a daughter
Mhm.
and a son. My youngest son, has just finished university,
Okay.
struggling to find work, struggling. He's good education, good background, good university. So I've just used ChatGPT. So I've got published books previously on Gen Z or Gen Z.
Yes.
And I've done a lot of stuff around career in my past, and so I put all of that into ChatGPT. So essentially all of my own material, 40, 50,000 words, and it helped me create and craft a book for him,
Oh, wow.
around basically career advice for young people. Um, and so, an example, and that sort of common theme is technology, can be a huge assistance, but you've got to be creative, you've got to be flexible, and trying to get that sort of message across, which is, I'm on my third or fourth career, depending on how you count it. Uh,
Yes.
you know, I'm need to learn the latest about AI, not because I want to, because I don't stay relevant unless I understand this material. But I didn't set out to be, a book writer. I didn't set out to be a coach. These things developed as I gained interest and knowledge, and
Yeah.
getting that advice across is it's not the end of the world if you can't find what you want to do straight away. Is sometimes quite hard to do.
It really is. It really is. And I like that you're staying relevant. I like that pivot that you have, that's really important, Guy. I think that s- not that staying still is not an option. I think that if you have a genuine, heartfelt desire to learn and to develop, I
Mm,
love what I do. I love sort of sitting down
absolutely.
like yourself. I can definitely feel the passion from the first time when we first originally met as well. Um, but equally, helping people uh, understand it's really good. And so when I go in and meet leadership or senior managers they've got their problems, their challenges, unraveling that, unwinding that, helping them think about what those things are is really a rewarding process. And then when you see what the value they get from that as they develop, it's really quite something. And I like those kind of, we are not for everyone, we're very much about a one-to-one sort of dialogue or one to a few dialogue
Mm.
with a few people. And that's something that I really enjoy. And you're right. being relevant, looking at all these different things. I'm fascinated by the fact that you put in all your internal data that you'd written,
Mm,
and then created another piece of content that's
absolutely.
relevant to today. That is. Have you published that book? Because
I'm
for
literally in
the
the
Gen Z.
I did it as a giveaway I
Okay.
did it for my son. The team behind Leadership Inside Out is the digital school of London School of Digital Business.
Mm,
They're helping me with that, and as part of my giving back to them, I'm going to make that book available to all of their students across the globe. Um,
fantastic.
so yes, it's written, it's 25,000 words. It is a fully sized,
Yeah, yeah,
proper,
yeah.
big thing. And it's all my content. I read it and I edit it, and it's like, yeah, no, I've written this. I've read, there is no ifs or buts. Um, so yeah, within the next couple of weeks, we were laughing about, using Kindle Direct Publishing and using AI to learn how to do that. Um, I've got those skills now. I'm not saying I'm great, but I'll publish that book. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, aiming for a Christmas present for my son, and making it available to, you know, my partners at London School of Digital Business
Mm.
across the globe. So
No, that sounds fantastic. I'd love to know a bit more about the. So I liaise with some of your colleagues from there, from London School of Digital
mm,
Business, and yeah, so definitely two things. The book, very keen on that, and to learn more about that, and obviously the LSDB, if I've got that right. Very interesting organization. I did have a quick look at it, but yes,
yeah,
really keen to learn a bit more about that. So
no, well, I mean, for another day, but yeah,
yeah,
I've been
absolutely, for another day.
for a
Absolutely.
few days, for a few years, and I mean, they've been really, really great. Really believe in what they're trying to do. Um,
Fantastic.
so yeah.
Yeah, we're reaching out as well, just so you know, to we're based in Surrey and in
Mhm.
Guildford, just reaching out. So we're just looking to get some engagement with the School of Business there, Surrey
Okay.
University,
Yeah.
as well. So it's kind of quite interesting how, um, if you don't give the youngsters a leg up or help them, then the
Mm.
future's not going to look very bright, is it?
No. No.
So it's a tough time for many of them, because there's I mean, really tough, because there's
Really.
not a lot out there.
No.
Back in the day, I was talking to my mother-in-law, who's 90 something, and she was saying that back when she was in London in the swinging 60s or whatever, you could leave a job in the morning and get another one in the afternoon. It's like it's this
No.
bizarre concept. And it was just kind of like everyone was, it's just like, what the hell? So it's a different era now, applying CVs, it's really, really difficult. And a lot of nepotism out there. It's difficult for kids to break
Oh,
through, but but yeah, fascinating. I'd love to know more about that. But yeah, this has been really great.
and one of the drivers for me, Reggie, when I first came to the UK, I was 21. Um, I was incredibly lucky in my first career, my first job, to come across a few people that were happy, prepared to help take off, the rough edges that I'd brought with me. Um, and I, didn't really think about it at the time, but that advice and guidance that I received in my early 20s, it's an aspect of me wanting to give a little bit back, because with that advice, I've had a wonderful, successful career. I've had huge opportunities, and I'm now in a good space that I can do that.
Wonderful,
And,
absolutely
and,
wonderful.
and if I can do the same for young people, then that's just a little bit of way to repay that early promise that they saw in me.
With you 100% on that, Guy. With you 100%. So yeah,
So,
cool.
good. Reggie, thank you. It's been a wonderful meandering journey through your career. Any last thoughts in terms of advice, reflections, what you're looking forward to possibly?
Yeah. Wow. I think from advice and reflection viewpoint, I would say certainly if you are going through challenging times, I think the key thing to remember is to first thing I'd always say is it's not forever, and the second thing I'd say is you know you cannot predict the future. We know that from recent events. So be in the moment. Yeah.
Be in the moment.
When somebody asked Socrates the time, he said, "It's now. Time is now." And just as on a slight twist on that, the CEO of the fastest growing company in the world, Nvidia, doesn't wear a watch, and he has very little. They've got very little future plans. He's very stoic. Let's put it that way. He literally said, "I don't wear a watch. I don't do this because I live in the now. I have less planning about the future because I don't know." He said, "If you'd have told me about my company 10 years ago, I wouldn't know I'd be here." We work on what we are doing right now, what's in front of us, and doing this right now. So that was really fascinating. So that's, I hope that makes sense. And then the future, I think the future, embracing the future, if you're doing well, give a little bit back, but also if you are, in terms of what the future holds, it's very exciting. Embrace it and learn about it and throw yourself in, because the future will be driven by lots of different things, but equally there's always a juxtaposition to all of these things. The human side is so important as well.
Yes.
It's always hybrid.
Yeah.
It's never just purely technology. There's always a human face to anything digital that we've always learned. So that's what I would say.
Wonderful.
So,
Reggie, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. So all the very best. And yeah, thank you.
I thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you. And thank you very much.